Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this second part in a four-part series on ChatGPT, its impact, and indeed its opportunities that it presents for us in the educational landscape. The Michael University College wishes today to extend special greetings and welcome to our guest speakers, Dr. Brent Anders and Dr. Wayne Wesley, our special presenter, Mr. Mark Smith, and our Vice President of Administration Acting, Mr. Alvin Lawson. We also want to extend our gratitude and welcome to our partners, the Jamaica Teachers Association, and our guests, the Jamaica Association of Principals of Secondary Schools, JAPS. We extend gratitude and special recognition to our streaming partners, PBC. We here at the Michael University College wishes to recognize our staff members who are participating and extend a special word of welcome to our invited guests who are watching locally in Jamaica, as well as those who are international participants watching and quite interested in what will be happening here today. We also want to extend special words of welcome to those who are watching on our online platforms, PBC Radio and TV, as well as the Michael University College's YouTube channel. Everyone, a special welcome, and you are in for a special treat today. Now, the role of technology and its impact has been recognized the world over. The challenge for many of us as educators is how can we embrace and yet guard against the challenges that it brings while ensuring that our students benefit from what we see as development. The education system has been tasked with developing our human capital to ensure that we allow them to benefit while we ensure that their brains get the chance to grow in spite of the opportunities that are available to them. So today you are in for a treat, and we look forward to a riveting conversation and discussion as we explore not just the challenges, but look towards the opportunities and even solutions for those things that we will be facing. At this time, I'm going to invite Mrs. Howell Williams to lead us in prayer, after which I'm going to invite our Administrative Vice President Acting, Mr. Lawson, to bring us greetings.
Good morning, everyone. Let us pray. Father in heaven, we thank you for who you are. We thank you for the gift of life. We thank you, God, for the skills and the abilities that you have endowed us with so that we can impact our nation, so that we can impact our world positively. Father, we want to thank you especially for the presenters for this conference. We thank you so very much for the wisdom and the knowledge that you have given to them, that they will be sharing with us today. And as they share, God, I pray that we will be enlightened in the different ways that we can navigate this pathway in the 21st century to be effective educators. Lord, we thank you for the way this session will go. We give you thanks that we will not have any interruptions because of internet challenges or whatever technological challenges that would happen. They will not happen because of you. Lord, we promise to give you praise. We promise to give you glory because we are cognizant of the fact that all that we are capable of doing and will be able to do is as a result of your endowment. So God, we give you praise and we thank you for this wonderful session. Be with us now. In your name I pray. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of President Asbun Pinnock and the administration here at the Michael University College, I take this opportunity in greeting you all and welcoming you to this international webinar. This is the second one of its nature as it relates to the subject ChatGPT. I'm particularly happy and thrilled to have this opportunity to associate with this webinar on the topic, ChatGPT and Education, Classroom Risks and Rewards. This is an exciting time in the field of education as we explore new ways to engage and inspire our learners. Today, the focus, I believe, as it relates to ChatGPT, will show how to utilize this in the classroom to enhance learning experience and to highlight the potential risks and rewards associated with its use. I want to take the opportunity to thank and welcome Dr. Wesley and Dr. Andres to share with us. I believe that their areas of expertise will allow them to do so in a way that at the end of this session, we all will benefit immensely. It would be remiss of me not to say a very big thank you and welcome to our associates, the JTA and the Jamaica Association of Principals for Secondary Schools. And just to say, this session is going to be a good one. And we will continue as the MICO to lead the way in the discussions regarding these new development within the sphere of education. So thank you all for coming, and we look forward to a real riveting experience. Once again, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lawson. At this time, I want to take the opportunity to invite Mr. Mark Smith, Principal of Monroe College, to spend a couple of minutes just talking to us about teaching and assessments in the Jamaican classroom and reflection. Now, Mr. Smith has been dedicated to developing human potential for over 22 years. He defines success as service to others. Mr. Smith considers himself a social entrepreneur, a lifelong learner, and he's currently serving as principal or headmaster of Monroe College. He's also an educational consultant in leadership development, emotional intelligence, and social emotional learning, focusing on boys' education. He's a former education officer, school inspector, HOD, vice principal, lecturer. He has run the gamut of the educational landscape. Mr. Smith seeks to make his mark by helping others and motivating and uplifting them through his social and philanthropical work in education. What sets him apart from others is his ability to connect with people in an authentic way based on his own story of resilience. Mr. Smith, we welcome you to spend some time talking to our audience on teaching and assessments in the Jamaican classroom.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bowen. And of course, I wish to recognize all the other members who will be presenting here this morning. And of course, take the opportunity to welcome all the teachers that are on the platform. It's a distinct honor and a privilege to share with you this morning. As a past student of the MICO, I am particularly honored, and so I love to see the fact that MICO continues to lead and create the opportunity for this type of intellectual discussion around these emerging technologies. Now, one of the things I want to start off by saying is that I have a very unique perspective when it comes on to education, because I started as a preacher and teacher. So I started at the very bottom. I don't think you can go much lower than that. And, it is through my experiences I've garnered a very tactile understanding of what education in Jamaica is about. And I think there are many others that would have a similar experience, but particularly what was interesting in my experience is the idea that I served with the National Education Inspectorate. So layering in my walk through and journey through the education system, I also had the opportunity to work in the capacity of going into schools and, in fact, in every single parish in this country, and sitting with teachers and seeing the remarkable work that was being done. And so when you're going to talk about your experience and how it is that you see the system, it's very important to not just look at what you have read somewhere, but also, and probably more importantly, what is actually happening on the ground. I remember one particular school that I visited. I had to drive my car until the road narrowed to a pathway. And I then journeyed on foot with my colleagues for 2 miles, walking across a swinging bridge to get to that school way up in Blue Mountains, in the Blue Mountain area. And it really helped to craft my perception of the work that we do as educators in the system, and just how remarkable or the outcomes we've achieved with the limitations. So we're definitely not where we want to be, and particularly as it relates to the secondary level. And I want to kind of zoom in on that particular experience, because what we have seen is that the outcomes we desire are not commensurate with what we would hope to achieve based on the investment we have made. And many would say, well, we are not investing enough, and that is quite true. I believe there needs to be a greater degree of investment in education. However, when compared to countries, and it is one of those World Bank indexed and approach that they will use when they talk about, how much we spend as a middle income country. And the reality is we are in the, I think, the top quartile when it comes on to that. However, the reality is how that money is spent is very important. How much of that money actually gets into the classroom to provide the teachers with the requisite resources that are necessary is critical. And sometimes the conversation lacks that depth and that nuance. And that is something that we have to understand, that in many of our schools, we do not have the requisite resources necessary. And that has served as a debilitating factor in ensuring that we can extract the best outcomes. Purview of the Jamaican, just glancing at the Jamaican education system, you're going to realize that there's no one size fits all. There is no one answer. There is no one solution for where we are and the challenges that we face. Because in essence, it is so nuanced, so layered, complexity of your people to speak very, say, quite nicely, because they've got challenges that those who work in the system face, both as administrators, as the teachers who have to execute what can be some very challenging outcomes, or should I say, very difficult outcomes to achieve with the resources given. And to put it best, you have to look back at the historical context. Many of our schools came out of a church, and it was really missionaries, working and establishing these schools in those early periods of the development of our education system. And today, we're looking at a scenario, a situation where government has played a much more significant role. However, we see a dichotomy in terms of the schools. You have some schools who they have historically been able to access greater resources. And I'm privileged, of course, to be the principal of one such school. And then you have schools who they simply do not have the requisite resources. And I also taught in schools like that. And so I understand. I've taught at the primary level, the secondary level, and at tertiary level. And so I understand the nuances of the problems that we face. And it's something for us to understand and appreciate. And that just glancing at it and saying that we're, for instance, you look at mathematics pass rate, which I think is 37.2%, and English language, which would be at 69.9%. And if you just look at that, you say, boy, we're not doing enough in education, or we're not doing well in education. But you have to really dig a lot deeper to understand what's happening below the surface, what is creating some of these problems. And so I've been a very strident voice when you speak about the need for us to invest more heavily in our early childhood sector and in our primary level education. And it is so critical, because what you will find is that children who are coming to us at the high school level, I spent most of my life in the secondary system, they're not coming to us equipped with the skill sets the knowledge base to properly take advantage of a high school education. And so the curriculum that is there really is not well suited for where they are because of many of the challenges that they come to. So they often come, the majority of our students are coming to us in many schools, reading below the required level. Yeah, their comprehension skills are below the required level. Their mathematical computational skills are below the required level. And so this creates a significant challenge for the teachers, because at the end of the day, we still have to set the CXC exams. Yeah. And when you look at that difference between, as I always say to colleagues, there is a story of two Jamaicas. And so there are some schools that will get, in essence, they'll end up getting the top performing students. And they have 5 years with them. And then you have another set of
We've lost your audio, Mr. Smith.
oh my goodness. Right, let me just recap that concept.
We're hearing you now. We're hearing you now. We're hearing you now.
And so you have a group of students who go to some more traditional schools, and I use that term very sparingly. The reality is a lot of schools get students who are not at the level where they can fully utilize a high school curriculum. It is not their fault. It is what I believe is a systemic issue. So it's not the teachers, people who are not very au fait of the education systems and the nuances in it, quickly point fingers at the teachers, or point fingers at the principals. The reality is you have to start to look at the systemic issues that plague the system, that result in students coming from the primary level, reaching the high school level without being able to have certain mastery of certain skill sets. And in so doing, what has been created is a dynamic in which you have children unable to perform at the required level and reaching those standards that are required of them. And at the end of the day, a school like a Monroe College will get students at the higher end of the spectrum in terms of their performance levels. And you'll have a school that will get students at the lower end of the performance spectrum. And so you have students coming in who are reading at the pre-primary level, not reading at all. You have students who are not interested in, I shouldn't say not interested in education, but their learning level, their readiness for learning is very low. And so when you put them in a school with the same 5 years, like one of the quote unquote traditional high schools, then it is no wonder that we have the outcomes that we have. I have some very interesting views on how it is that we need to approach, really dismantling what is in essence vestiges of our colonial past that still exist within and have been woven into our education system. But nevertheless, what is critical is that as educators, I believe that we have to continue to utilize the various opportunities that exist. And in my experience as a school inspector, it gave me the opportunity to sit with teachers, not to have a big stick, but to talk to people. And anybody that was a part of an inspection team that I led would tell you about the discourse, the rich depth of discourse that we had around what was happening in the school. And in every single school that I visited, you had great and amazing things happening. Yeah, there were always teachers who understood and were able to get the best out of students. I think that, as I mentioned earlier, we have a systemic challenge. All right. And it is really how the system is structured. And we have to then take the opportunity to really look at that. In many of our classrooms, for instance, there is not the access to internet is often far less than what it should be. And if you look back just 2 years before the pandemic, it was worse. All right. So the pandemic helped as a bit of a catalyst to move the entire system forward. However, in most of our schools, we still struggle with adequate internet access. We also struggle with not having enough technology available, the projectors, the smart televisions, the other trappings that are necessary, even computers in many schools is still a challenge, all right? We also have issues in regards to being able to adequately resource and fund expansion programs. At Monroe College, for instance, we're looking into dabbling into some of these emerging technologies to help to stimulate and excite students in learning. One of the critical things also, as I wrap up, is the concept that you have in many of our schools across the country, a dynamic in which many teachers are excited, they want to utilize these technologies, but when they sometimes bring it to the students, you're finding that because of the 2 or 3 years, the 2 levels before, I apologize, 2 levels before, that is a primary and a pre-primary level, you're going to find that they have not been interacting with technology. And so when you get to a high school and all of a sudden somebody wants to thrust a laptop in front of you and say, this is the way you're going to research everything, you find it takes a lot more work. And when those resources are not easily available, you start to realize that we have tried, we launched a program we call the digital classroom program, and we had to then reassess how we're going to implement it, because the kids were coming and they were more fascinated with the devices. Again, we're on a journey, and that's what I want to leave us with, is to understand that we're on a journey. ChatGPT is really one of those emerging technologies, which I think, much like the calculator many years ago, will one day probably find itself into our school system as a very effective tool. And I myself use it quite effectively. And I hope that we're open to the wide possibilities that exist, as well as many of the challenges. And I look forward to a very exciting conversation as we continue to work together. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.
Thank you so much, Mr. Smith. That was very comprehensive. And I thank you for just the perspective that you would have presented, in which our discussions and conversations can be situated. At this time, I want to make special welcome to our University Librarian, Mrs. Melanie Leach. She is the one who is responsible with her team for putting this occasion together, this opportunity together. And so at this time, I want us to make her feel welcome as she comes to introduce to us our guest speakers. Mrs. Leach.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bowen. Now, my duty here is to introduce the 2 guest presenters. First, I will introduce Dr. Wayne Wesley. Dr. Wesley is Registrar and Chief Executive Officer of the Caribbean Examinations Council. As Registrar and CEO, Dr. Wesley is entrusted with the responsibility to provide innovative leadership to the organization in fulfilling its regional mandate. As an experienced chief executive, Dr. Wesley has served on various boards and has given his time and expertise to assist organizations in the field of education. He served as chairman of the Caribbean Association of National Training Authorities, senior lecturer and program director at the University of Technology, and a board member of University Council of Jamaica. He is a transformational leader with over 30 years of service to education and training in the Caribbean region and internationally. As such, he has appeared extensively in the media, participating in several webinars. Currently, Dr. Wesley is serving on the CARICOM New School Model Committee and the Caribbean Community Administrative Tribunal. Dr. Brent Anders. Dr. Anders is the Director of the Office of Institutional Research and Assessment and the Center for Teaching and Learning at the American University in Armenia. He serves as a lecturer on the topic of professional communication. Dr. Anders has worked in higher education for over 20 years, concentrating on enhancing the educational experience for both instructors and students through the use of engaging media and online instruction. Dr. Anders has done multiple public speaking events throughout the US and other parts of the world, including Australia, Germany, and Armenia. His research interests are artificial intelligence in education, student motivation, and educational professional development. Dr. Anders has authored multiple books, research articles, and blog posts dealing with educational methodologies, online learning, and educational technology. His most recent book is on ChatGPT, and it's titled ChatGPT AI in Education: What it is and how to use it in the classroom. And that book is now available on Amazon. We want to welcome our two guest presenters. And at this time, I will ask Mr. Anders.
All right, thank you very much.
And just to say to our audience, we will have a question and answer segment that will come up at the end of the two presentations. So I ask that you type your questions in the chat and they will be answered shortly after. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I have 30 minutes and I have a lot of great information to share with all of you. And I want to start off by saying that I'm very honored to be given this opportunity. This is a very important topic that is being requested throughout the world. As you were just in the introduction was telling, I have been giving this presentation in many different places because it's so popular. I just recently did one in the United States, and then right before that with Tunisia. So in Northern Africa, again, throughout the world, this is a very important topic. So I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to share my screen so that I can cover a couple of different things that I want to make sure that we go through together. Okay, so in understanding what this is, can everyone see my screen? I just want to make sure that it's good. You can see it full screen. Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yes, I see your screen.
Okay, so in going through this, the way that we need to think about what is ChatGPT AI is we first need to look at it as a friend, right? This is a smart friend that wants to help you. So we all have some smart friends that are very good at many different things. So if we view it that way, that it wants to help you, but we also have to remember, like all of our smart friends, they're not perfect. So keep that in mind as we go through this in talking about what is ChatGPT. So this is the interface. It's a very simple interface. The key thing about this of ChatGPT from OpenAI is that you can interact with it with simple English, simple conversational English. You don't need to know code. You don't need to know any special keywords, just simple English. So as I present what this is, let's go through it and do a simple sort of example here. So I actually went through and I gave it this prompt. That's what we refer to when we ask it questions, is prompt. So the prompt here is write a college level essay about the history of Michael University College, Jamaica, with in-text citations and a reference list in APA format. Now notice how specific I'm getting here with the question that I'm asking. I'm putting in some very particular things, and let's see how it does. It instantly gives me a correct answer. This was a pretty good essay that it wrote for me. I went through and I checked most of it to make sure that it was good information. And so it did it. It even gave me in-text citations. And then at the end, it gave me an actual reference list. So this was really good as far as its capabilities in performing and doing the task given. But hold on a second. We have to remember that it's not perfect. I want to draw your attention first to here. If you look at this URL, you'll notice that the URL actually isn't correct. So that was a mistake that it gave it to me, right? But it seems like it's confident. It looks like it would make sense, but no, that's actually an incorrect URL. The same thing with this right here. I could not find this anywhere. I went to Amazon, I went to the internet, I went to Google Scholar. This doesn't exist. But if you look at it, it looks like it could exist, right? I mean, the title of this, the Michael College, Historical Perspective, West Indies Press, that's a real press. But no, this is an incorrect, made up reference. So that leads us to understand that even though this can create really good information for us, we have to make sure that we are checking to validate the information that it creates for us. Again, it's very useful, but we have to make sure that we have this other component, which is AI literacy. AI literacy is one of the most important skills that we as instructors need to develop, as well as develop within our students, because this is going to be a #1 thing that students need to have not just in the future, but right now, because the future is coming so quickly. So what is AI literacy? Well, it's broken down into a few different sections. The first one is awareness. Awareness that AI is all around us. ChatGPT is now this tool that we can use to directly interact with it. But besides ChatGPT, AI is already all around us, meaning things like suggestions from different stores like Amazon.com, suggestions from streaming services or any other service that we use, all those suggestions in the back end, that's being done with AI. Simple things like your Gmail, if you're typing and it starts to predict and say, do you mean this? The predictive analysis, that's all AI. Using tools like Grammarly, that has AI. Microsoft Word, that has AI built into it. And it's actually going to have even more in the future because they're working on integrating ChatGPT within Microsoft Word and the other Microsoft products as well. So by understanding that, having this awareness that AI is all around us, we'll start to understand that it's going to impact society. So we need to be conscious of that. The next part is ability. We have to be able to learn how to use it properly, and how to use it to our own benefit, because everyone else is going to start to learn this. Competing countries, instructors, students, businesses, competition within business, they're all going to start to use this. So we can't be left behind. We have to understand how can we harness the capabilities of AI for our own benefit. The third one is knowledge. This knowledge that anyone can use it. Instructors can use it, but so can students. So can businesses, so can other countries. We have to know that, hey, everyone is being able to incorporate this, so we need to be part of this as well. Now, this fourth one is the most important, and that is critical thinking. Critical thinking on all AI. ChatGPT is, of course, important, but we need to be thinking critically on all AI that's out there. What methods are used by the AI to create the content that we receive? What are the sources of information that it's using? Is it completely open to the internet? If it is, well, then it's probably going to incorporate some bias. So we have to understand what's going on with the information that we're getting. Is this coming from a Jamaican AI, a US AI, a Chinese AI, another country's AI? That could all have bias as well. So we have to think about that. And along with that is ensuring safety and security of personal information. If we're using an AI, we have to be careful if we're putting in some sensitive information that might be resold or might be distributed on the internet. We have to be conscious of that and critical of that. Now, when it says here, critical thinking on all AI, it's going to become even more important. And our students really need to understand this, that we can no longer simply assume that what we read in the media, view as far as video, hear as far as audio through the internet, or even the pictures that we see, we can't assume that those are real. In the past, we used to think, oh, if we see it, then we can believe it. But now we have to understand that with all the different types of AI that are out there, the ability to create deep fakes, the ability to create perfectly looking photographs, photorealistic things, they might not necessarily be true. So that's why we have to now start to think about this as far as our first reaction to something that we see in the media needs to be, let me think about it. Let me have a critical analysis of it. Let me get multiple sources of information to verify this. We can't just assume that it's correct. We always have to use this critical thinking with all of AI. Why is this important? This is important because this is a must-have 21st century skill for students to have in order to be competitive in the job market. So of course, education isn't just about employment afterwards. It's about developing a good citizen. That's 100% correct. But we also need to be understanding that we do need to prepare them for the real world, and the job market is now demanding that people have these type of skills. And it's not just me saying that. You can see all the references noted there. This is coming from different agencies in the United States, from Europe, Forbes magazine, lots of different agencies that are talking about how this is a soft power skill that 21st century students and employees must have. So let's talk about some of the rewards that come along with this, because again, there's a lot going on to this. So what are some of the rewards that students get? Well, to begin with, AI is a very hot topic like we just talked about. So the idea that we can use that to help focus students by incorporating this tool in some way is a very powerful thing to think about. How can we motivate students? Because that's very much the first step in trying to get them to learn. So by using AI in different ways, we can use it as a motivational and interesting tool because it is very modern and relevant. The next one, interactive capabilities. There is powerful ways that we can use ChatGPT to create things like simulations, study buddies, all sorts of things that can really empower that student to take even more ownership of their learning, because there's different ways that AI can be incorporated. So again, that's just one aspect, this interactive capabilities. The other one is accessibility. One of the big things is that everyone is different. Sure, we might have some students with disability issues that need accessibility, but even within a classroom, we have different students that are understanding the content at different rates. So the power of ChatGPT is that it can really enhance the accessibility for all people. It can do things like summarize information to make it easier for someone to understand information at different levels. That is a very powerful capability, meaning that, okay, we're covering this next topic. I didn't understand the topic when you presented it to me. So I'll ask ChatGPT, can you summarize this information? It presents it to me. You know what, I'm still not understanding. Can you give me this information at, instead of a college level, maybe a high school level, so I can get it, and then we can build back up. You know what, I still don't understand that at this high school level. Give me this information at an elementary level. Oh, okay, now I understand. Now build it up. Give it to me at a high school level now. Now give it to me at the college level. Oh, now I get it. Now I can catch back up with the rest of my class. So this has lots of applications as far as just-in-time learning, differential learning, all sorts of possibilities here. Another great part is this repeated practice. I can use ChatGPT to help me practice going through the information. And I can do that in several different ways. I'll show you some examples here in a second. But the thing is that since this is my smart friend that is an AI, I don't have to worry about this person I say, but this friend of mine ever becoming frustrated. I can ask it questions again and again and again. I can tell it to give me different examples to help me understand. You know what, I need another example. I need more examples. Tell it to me in a story. Tell it to me in this different analogy. I can do so much by interacting with ChatGPT in different ways. Why? Because it's there to assist me in so many different aspects. So again, that's a very powerful reward, a benefit for the student. The other thing is that it's always available. It's always there for me. It's 24/7. The capability is right there. It can do so much, and it's always there without getting frustrated. So something to think about. Okay, so here's a really powerful example of something that can be done. Here, this is an example of somewhat of a simulation. So I pose this question to ChatGPT. I say, act like an interviewer who's interviewing me for a position of a high school English teacher at Excelsior High School in Kingston, Jamaica. Ask me questions about this position as a prospective candidate, and only reply as an interviewer. Don't write the entire conversation at once. Ask me questions and wait for my answers. Now, it's very specific that we have to see exactly how I wrote this question, because this is where this prompt engineering comes in. If you ask questions in a different way, it's going to act in a different way. So the engineering of the question becomes very important. Now, because I asked it in this way, it responded and acted exactly like that. So this would be an example of a simulation, right? I'm going through, it's pretending to be this interviewer, and I'm pretending to be a job applicant. So this would be a great tool to use, say, for professional communications class, something like that, to help the student go through that. But this could be modified for any class to create a simulation type thing where they go through. What's really interesting is I went through this simulation and I started to get a little bit nervous. Why? Because I started to get into it, like I was actually going through this interviewing process where it was asking me these pretty good questions. So, the first one is just to ask me a quick little question about my experience, and then it asked me about my philosophy on education, and it kept going with different questions. So it was really intense, and it went through and asked me about 7 to 10 different questions about, as a real interview. So it was a very powerful experience. And thankfully, at the very end, I said, okay, now pretend that you're on the hiring committee and evaluate my interview and tell me if I got the job or not. So you can see it went through and it was able to analyze what happened, what transpired in that simulation. And thankfully, I'll have you know that I got the job, right? So that's great. So again, this is very powerful and impactful. And I want you to think about this because, as I just explained, in going through the simulation, I was learning about the process, learning about how to go through it. And most importantly, I made an emotional connection with that learning process. That's going to help me so much more later on when I try to recall the information. When I try to apply it in a different setting, I'm going to remember this experience that I had. Because education isn't just about data and information. No, it's about this experience. It's about emotional connection. So ChatGPT is able to induce that simply through text. So again, this was just one example. This is just one capability by using it as a simulation. So again, a powerful different example here. And again, this is just getting started as far as capabilities. We're talking about the free version of ChatGPT using the language, which is 3.5. There's already a 4.0 version that's available behind a paywall. But again, it's continuing to improve, continuing to become even more powerful, more capabilities. So again, we need to get on the ground floor of this so that we can work with the system to develop it as it continues to grow. That was the benefits for the students, but what about for us instructors? What about for professors, teachers? Is there something that ChatGPT can give us specifically? The answer is yes. It can do a lot. It can help us creating rubrics. It can help us as a teacher assistant, meaning that it can create syllabi for us. It can create different versions of test questions, answers. It can help us writing emails, writing outlines. You pose questions, you can give information to ChatGPT, and it can organize the information for you in different ways. Another powerful way that we can use ChatGPT is scaffolding creator. This is really great, and we can do this in many different ways, meaning that we could create quizzes, we could create simulations like I just showed you. That could be a scaffolding for someone that's just not getting it in class. We can create different ways, different prompts that a student could use to, again, have that scaffolding to help them get through and understand the information. It can also help with creating feedback. So I could start to use it for some aspects of grading. Again, I say that hesitantly just because it's important for an instructor to actually go through and do the grading so that they can see what the student is doing and to see their development. But this can assist with that. This can help you write out some information. This can help give you a preliminary information. There's lots of different ways to use it. One of the big things that I try to tell my instructors dealing with ChatGPT is that using ChatGPT is not an all or nothing. You don't have to be fully engaged with ChatGPT and use it for everything. It doesn't have to be that way. You can use it for specific little things that might help you, that might save you time, and then you can start to see where it can help you and then where you can engage with it more if it's to your benefit. The other big one here is student-centered instruction guide. ChatGPT knows a whole lot about a whole lot. So you can ask it questions about different pedagogical approaches, different, using andragogy, adult learning principles. It knows all the jargon associated with instruction. So you can ask it detailed questions and it can help you in many different ways. Assignment instruction checker. So this is one that comes from my book specifically, in that you can put in your instructions for your assignment into ChatGPT to see what type of results it would give. So if this is an assignment that you're giving to your students, you might think, oh, well, is this too easy of an assignment? Let me see what ChatGPT says. If it gives instant results that are A+, maybe you need to make your assignment a little bit more difficult. Or at the very least, this gives you the type of information that ChatGPT is giving you, so that way you can see, okay, if my students turn something in like this, I'll know that they use ChatGPT, and then we can have a discussion on whether or not it's appropriate for them to use AI for this assignment, because you as the instructor need to be empowered as to choosing when to use it and when not. So here's an example. I simply put in, again, this is the prompt that I'm using: create a rubric for a group project where students have to work in a team and present a business proposal. Make it have 3 levels: ineffective, effective, outstanding. Have the criteria be presentation, teamwork, and time management. Put it all within a spreadsheet. Instantly, it gives me this information. Now, the great thing about this is that I can go in and edit it. I can tell it, no, adjust this, change the criteria, take out this, and it'll instantly do it again. The fact that it's in a spreadsheet, I can copy this and put it in Excel and make it look however I want to as well. So again, the idea that it's helping you and saving you time is a big plus. Here's another way where I'm using it as a student-centered instruction guide. I simply prompt it by saying, what would be some good hands-on student-centered ways to teach the importance of a high-quality environment in early childhood education and care? So again, I'm an instructor, I'm teaching this concept, I want to make it more hands-on, so I pose this to ChatGPT. Give me some ideas, help me have a starting point. And sure enough, it gives some great ideas here about different ways we can do this. We can have a field trip, we can do reflective writing assignment, we can have class discussion, all sorts of different ways. Role play, that's a big one that I love to use. And this just instantly helped me to think things through. So that's another big part of what ChatGPT can do to help you as an instructor. This is an infographic that I recently released. I try to do this throughout my website and through Twitter as well. This is course alignment and AI. So what I do here is, in understanding the concept of course alignment, I try to show where ChatGPT can assist you in creating course alignment. In creating your SLOs, you can have ChatGPT help you in instructional strategies like we just saw. ChatGPT can help you with different pedagogies, with assessment strategies. Again, ChatGPT can help you to think things through as far as what type of assessments you want to use, whether formative or summative. Here's an example where I used AI in different ways with Bloom's taxonomy. So you see there's different prompts here where I'm asking it just for help with action verbs for this level of the taxonomy. I'm asking it, what would be a great way to actually write and evaluate level student learning objective on the topic of X at a university course level. Again, it could be at an elementary level and you put in the class. You can put in specifics here to suit your needs and it can adjust for that. The big thing is the prompt engineering. How are you asking it that question? So these are all successful prompts that I've been able to use. I tested it and it works really well. So again, different tools, different ways to help with teaching and instruction. So those are all great and rosy and wonderful. All right. But we also have to talk about the risks, because there are some issues to really think about. And this is important. We can't just focus on the great. We have to be conscious of things that are important to understand what are the risks and if there's any way to mitigate some of those things. So the first one here is access and availability. Availability. Dr. Smith was just talking about this. So this is an important thing to really think about. Do all my students have access to ChatGPT outside of the classroom? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. So we need to think about how we're going to use it. So it might be a matter of maybe we're just going to use it in the classroom. Maybe as a class together, we're going to go through some of these assignments and see what AI does and then talk about it and discuss it. So again, we have to be conscious. We have to be aware of the tools and the resources that our students have so that we can use this properly. Next one, the ethics, security and privacy of student information. It's always super important. We have to understand that ChatGPT, the current version, the free version of ChatGPT that's out there, that's still a beta, meaning that all information that you're putting in there, they can reuse however they want to, because it's a beta, it's still testing. Now, it's different if it's the ChatGPT Plus, which is behind a paywall. So that would be different additional security, privacy for the information. So we have to be careful that we don't put in, let's say, student information or names or personal essays, things like that. We have to be careful in how we're using it, again, because of the ethical considerations for this. Over-reliance. So here recently, ChatGPT, the people behind ChatGPT, which is OpenAI, they released a paper on their new language, which is GPT-4. That's what ChatGPT Plus uses. And in there, they've been doing research on ChatGPT, and they bring up this real phenomenon, which is called over-reliance. So that's where some people start to over-rely on the AI. And in doing so, they'll start to lose some skills because, it's one of those things where you use it or you lose it. So if, let's say with essay writing, if I'm never writing an essay anymore because ChatGPT can write this perfect essay, well, I'm going to start to lose those skills. So it's important that we understand that in academia. We understand that, hey, before we even allow a student to use this AI, they need to develop some skills mastery. So we need to make sure that they have a fundamental base of good structure. Then we can start to incorporate some AI. Maybe the AI is used at higher levels. Maybe the AI is used in the middle of the semester as opposed to from the very beginning. This is where it's very important for the instructors to be empowered. They need to know and understand, why are we doing this? And is it okay to use AI here? They need to think it through. What are the ramifications? What are we gaining? What are we losing? So it's important to really think it through. Now, I say that, but I have lots of instructors that are very much embracing AI, and I have some instructors that are very much against AI. We have to understand that when we are using or not using AI, students are going to develop and they're going to want to use this AI. So now as an instructor, it's going to become that much more important for us to be able to say to the student, why are we using AI here? Why are we not using AI for this assignment? I have to be able to properly, explicitly explain to my student, hey, we're not using AI for this assignment because we're developing skills mastery. Later on, we're going to be doing this other assignment. That's when we're going to be using AI, and then you'll be able to use it more effectively because we did this assignment without AI. You've developed a skills mastery here. Now you'll know what right looks like when we use AI over here. But we as in academia, we have to be able to fully explain that to our students. We have to ensure that they understand the relevancy of what we're saying and how it all fits together. That's going to become even more and more important as we go on. So here's the big one, cheating, right? Every instructor out there is worried about cheating. Hey, don't want to use ChatGPT at all because they're just going to cheat. Okay, so we can't jump to that conclusion. And we have to also realize ChatGPT didn't invent cheating, right? It's always existed. It's existed for thousands of years. So to think that, oh, now things are different because we have this AI, no, things aren't different. Guess what? If they're cheating now, they were probably cheating before. So things are easier now, but we have to go back to the basics and really understand, well, what is cheating and why are they cheating? So there has been lots of research done dealing with cheating. And I've identified here some of the main reasons why students cheat. The first reason here is not being fully prepared, a fear of failure. So those are two different things, by the way. So not being fully prepared, meaning that I didn't go through, I didn't understand, so I'm not ready for this test. Fear of failure is different in that I'm an A+ student. I'm very smart, but I'm worried that I might not get an A+, so I'm going to cheat to ensure that I get an A+. Those are two different things, but they fall within the number one reason as far as why people cheat. So how can we use AI to help us overcome this issue? Well, scaffolding. If we have more scaffolding put in and we can use AI to help with that, to create a study buddy, to create practice tests, again, AI can assist us with all of that. That can help to reduce this issue of cheating as far as that number one reason. The next one, not enough time to complete an assignment. So by using AI, we can help teach time management skills. Again, productivity, time saving, if they can use AI in different ways to help them and for them to understand the importance of time management, this will be so much better for them to be able to be ready to actually do the assessment or the assignment. Not fully understanding the material. So this is the third reason here. And again, explaining the content in different ways, just like we talked about at different complexity levels or sophistication, providing additional examples, analogies, stories, anything and everything to help the student understand so that they can comprehend the material so that they don't have to resort to cheating. Believing that cheating is acceptable. So this is the number 4 reason why people cheat in a class is because they think, oh, it's acceptable, it's okay. The instructor didn't really say too much about it, so I guess it's okay. So again, we can use AI literacy, we can use AI in itself as the topic to bring up and say, hey, I'm teaching you this AI literacy so that you can develop, but you have to follow the right process. You have to use AI when I tell you, when I allow you, because this is a developmental process. So again, by talking about it in class explicitly so that students know, then we can develop and move forward properly. Again, everyone needs to be on the same sheet of music and understanding that, academic integrity is super important, so cheating is not acceptable. And then this other one here, believing that others are cheating. So again, if other people are cheating, I might as well cheat. Otherwise, I'm cheating myself by not cheating, right? So again, consequences and relevancy, showing the students why it's not to their benefit to cheat. Because if they cheat over here, they're not going to be able to do this assignment over here. They're not going to be able to do well in this class over here, and showing them how AI is part of that as well. Okay, I really want to show you this one too. This is another infographic that I've released out there. And this is, I'm going to tell you ahead of time, this is sort of a sneaky thing that I've done to my instructors. Okay, it's a sneaky thing, and I'll reveal that to you here in a second. So this was an infographic and was very popular on how to make any assignment resistant to ChatGPT. okay? Because I had lots of instructors asking me for this. So here's the first one, is make it current and modern. So ChatGPT, due to the nature of it, the free version, it doesn't have information after 2021. So if you can make your assignments use real current information, real modern, things that are going on more current, then it's going to be that much more difficult for students to use ChatGPT to get the answers for it. The next one is to incorporate hands-on learning to make your classes more dynamic. So if it's more dynamic, meaning that you're using active pedagogies, discussions, students have to answer questions, they have to present in class, they have to create videos, you're using debates, you're using group work, it's so much harder to use ChatGPT to simply do all the answers for you. The next one, use images and videos. So if you use more multimodal type of instruction, or even within your assessments where they have to read or they have to view a video or look at an image and then try to answer the questions, where ChatGPT can't do that. So again, by using more images, more dynamic media, it's going to be that much more difficult. And then the final one is to maximize student motivation to learn. So again, that they know what's going on. They know the relevancy of the topics. They understand what's going on. They have reflection of the learning process itself, not just the end product, but the overall process. And then also you're giving them opportunities to actually apply their skills, their actual skills, as opposed to just a simple test that's ABCD, which ChatGPT would be really good at. So again, that's a different thing. Now, the sneaky thing that I was telling you about here is that let's take a step back and look at this. This is what you need to do to make a great class in general, regardless of ChatGPT, right? I mean, students want a current modern class with information that's currently going on. They want hands-on learning. They want student-centered instruction. They want dynamic pedagogies. So this is how we make a good class to begin with. They want images, they want video, and they want to be motivated. So they need to know that relevancy. They need to be able to reflect, and they need to apply the skills. If they're able to actually do these things, then they're going to enjoy that class and really have long-term learning, which is what we're really after. So again, this is the sneaky way of, yes, you're going to make it more resistant to ChatGPT, but you're doing what you should be doing in making this great type of class. Okay, so I wanted to give you, if I still have a little bit of time here, I wanted to give you a quick another example here of, this is the 7-step writing process. So again, I'm all about instructor empowerment. So with this is another infographic that's available out there. This is all about how you can either embrace ChatGPT to help with the 7-step writing process, or do things to make it more resistant to ChatGPT. You as the instructor need to think things through and decide, is this appropriate here or is it appropriate somewhere else? So again, the idea here is the first step would be choose a topic. So I could do this with ChatGPT and it could help me create and generate ideas. So it's a very powerful tool for that. I can make this more resistant by doing this in class, by using specific sources and saying, no, you have to choose from this. You have to do this within this class again, so I can verify that you're not using ChatGPT. The next step is brainstorming. Again, ChatGPT can help me come up with different ideas. This could all be done in class. I could require additional things like, well, you have to draw out a mind map, a visual representation of your brainstorming activity. So again, making it more dynamic. Outlining. ChatGPT is great for outlining. It'll instantly create an outline from whatever topic you give it. And again, you can edit it really easily with ChatGPT. This can also be done in class. You can require that there's more personal aspects to it. You can pose questions about this, again, to ensure that the student understands what they're doing within the outline, as opposed to just taking it from the AI. Drafting, creating a draft. ChatGPT is so powerful, you can simply give it an outline and say, create a draft for me, and it'll instantly do that. So again, it can do that. But again, you can use that in different ways, in that you could have it create a draft, and then you could say, okay, now student, you need to use critical thinking and check to make sure everything is correct. Again, if you want to incorporate ChatGPT at that time. Or you can make it so that, again, that content is very specific. It includes things maybe from class. You could also request an annotated bibliography. So now the student has to give reasons why they chose the different resources that they're using within their draft. Soliciting feedback. ChatGPT is very powerful in this way too. I could actually take a completed essay that either ChatGPT wrote or that I wrote, feed it into ChatGPT, and it can give me feedback. It can tell me, this is great, there's problems with your grammar, all that stuff, it can do that. So this could be done in class as well. So this could be done through peer evaluations, again, to ensure that ChatGPT isn't being used. So again, different ways to implement this. Revising, again, ChatGPT can handle that, or this can be done in class. You can require annotated bibliography, answer reasons why the changes were made, again, to ensure that the student is going through this. And then finally, proofreading, which again is a strong point of ChatGPT, but this could be done as a student, a specific thing that goes through. So again, different ways that this can all be done, different ways that the instruction itself could be modified so that you can maximize the use of ChatGPT or not use ChatGPT. Again, the whole thing is that the instructor needs to be empowered to really think about the process and to really understand at what level should we be incorporating it. We do need to be incorporating it so that they develop these tools, because again, they have to develop this AI literacy. It's a must, but the level and the way that they do it, that needs to be up to the instructor. That needs to be part of the curriculum itself at some point so that we can develop this properly and effectively as well.
As I expected and promised, Dr. Anders delivered. I am still trying to digest.
Yeah, there's so much information, so much good stuff.
And we're excited. Yeah. We are excited, but it is not finished yet. The feast continues. And so I invite now Dr. Wesley to come and share with us ChatGPT from this unique perspective. I think many of us are interested as educators to hear from this perspective. Sexy, how are you going to manage? What you gonna do? So we look forward to hearing from you, Dr. Wesley, in terms of how we can navigate this space from one of our premier Caribbean institutions.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me and allowing me to be a part of your presentation, your activity today. I must apologize though, because as soon as I'm finished here, I'm gone and I will have a flight to catch. Can you see my presentation?
We are indeed seeing it, Doctor.
Right. So thank you very much. Two important presentations there, Brent. I think you have covered a lot. What I'll try and do in my presentation here, given the limited time I now have, is to just summarize what you have said, because you pretty much cover all the aspects of what we want to talk about. And, you know, there are some things that I'll have to just skip over because, as I said, the time constraints. So I'll just go ahead and summarize. First of all, colleagues, good afternoon to all persons across the region listening and the organizers of this event. Thanks for your welcome. As pointed out by Brent, artificial intelligence uses the existing knowledge, whether factual or not, to generate a creative response to an inquiry. And it is important for us to recognize factual or not, because it has access to a huge database on the internet that it uses to generate a response. Now, the evolution of content, as I oftentimes say to people, starts from the stone tablets in the olden days when, you know, we preserve information on tablets. We move to scrolls and manuscripts. We move to books. Then we move to libraries. We move to the internet. Then Google came out. And after Google, we now have ChatGPT, right? And when I was preparing this information, all of a sudden I recognized that GPT-4 is out, and a successor to the earlier version is out, and we have not yet even digested what the first one was all about. Some persons are still trying to wrap their heads around it. And the evolution of this particular content and ChatGPT-4, I've highlighted that section there. And I want you to pay attention that it elucidates a phenomenon where AI invent facts or makes reasoning errors, as pointed out by Brent, so I won't even elaborate as much. And because of that, we recognize that this situation requires a lot more vigilance on the part of those who are interacting with AI. So I just want, before I go, to give this motivational video, which was done by Gary Roberts. And for those of you on LinkedIn, you perhaps would have seen it because he posted it on LinkedIn, where he said, you know, an example of how he merged content from ChatGPT with a talking AI avatar, could produce a basic lesson in minutes. You know, he asked it to produce something, to pretend that he's a geography teacher, and how they would present a lesson on plate tectonics, right? And listen to what that combination of ChatGPT and AI avatar produced, for those of you who don't see.
Hello class, my name is Mr. Jones and I will be your geography teacher for this lesson on plate tectonics. Today, we will be exploring the fundamental concept of plate tectonics, which explains the dynamic behavior of the Earth's crust. Plate tectonics is the theory that the Earth's outer shell is divided into several plates that move and interact with each other. These plates can be thought of as giant puzzle pieces that fit together to make up the Earth's crust. The first thing we need to understand is the different types of plate boundaries. There are three main types: divergent, convergent, and transform boundaries. Divergent boundaries occur where plates move apart from each other, creating mid-ocean ridges and rift valleys. Convergent boundaries occur where plates collide, and one plate is usually forced beneath the other in a process called subduction. Finally, transform boundaries occur where plates slide past each other in opposite directions. The movement of plates can cause a variety of geological features. For example, divergent plate boundaries can create new crust through volcanic activity, while convergent boundaries can create mountain ranges and cause earthquakes. Transform boundaries can also cause earthquakes due to the friction between the plates. It is important to note that plate tectonics has had a significant impact on human society. Natural disasters such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and tsunamis are all a result of plate tectonic activity. However, plate tectonics also plays a role in the formation of important resources such as oil and natural gas. Finally, I would like to mention some current research and discoveries in plate tectonics. New technologies such as GPS and satellite imaging have allowed scientists to better understand plate movement and predict earthquakes. Additionally, scientists are still studying the effects of plate tectonics on climate change and the evolution of life on Earth. To summarize, plate tectonics is a fundamental concept in geography that explains the movement and behavior of the Earth's crust. Understanding plate tectonics is essential in predicting natural disasters and studying the formation of resources. Thank you for joining me in this lesson on plate tectonics in geography. Hello class.
So what we can see from that presentation, combining ChatGPT AI with the AI avatar, because that person you're looking at delivering that lesson is totally AI generated. It's not a real person. But you can see the kind of interaction that Brent actually spoke about earlier, and I won't necessarily go in there. And the idea now to fact check what has been presented and whether or not that is accurate. And so that creates a whole level and a new area of excitement for persons to do. But that kind of interaction and capability is quite powerful. And if we can harness those kind of powers in the right way, I think we'll be making strides within our education system. So the concerns about ChatGPT is that it has access to a huge online database of information of varying quality. And Brent spoke about the need to validate that. It can be used to promulgate disinformation, and we have to be very discerning as to what is being presented, because it can present erroneous information. Insufficient understanding right now about how it really works. And so regulation and policy and what needs to be in place to govern how we interact with these devices are still yet to be developed. And so persons are very concerned as to how the proliferation of this technology will impact the teaching learning process. Implicitly or explicitly, it incorporates bias based on the information and the logics of others who perhaps would have written the information that it is gleaning from. It also can have negative impact of the cognitive development process, and Brent spoke about that as well, because I actually refer to it as intellectual laziness, because you become over dependent. And perhaps finally, in my not exhaustive list, the replacement or taking over from humans. People feel that, well, this thing will have the capability to take over from all of us and all of that. There are some pertinent questions by Jeffrey Goldsmith, an associate professor of biostatistics at Columbia University, who I agree with. He said the question for us as educators is not to resist this tool or to circumvent it, but the question is, how do we teach the next generation to use the power of these tools for good? And in my opening slide, I made the point about the evolution from stone tablets all the way now to ChatGPT and the fact that development is happening. And then how do we harness its benefits while understanding and mitigating the limitations? And Brent went through that, so I will not go there. But the emphasis I want to bring here to today's discussion is us reimagining the teaching, learning, and assessment process by creating the right balance between competence development and content acquisition and coverage. I think we need to now have a greater level of emphasis on competence development. And so creating the right balance is important. We talk about content acquisition versus competencies and skills. And I think as we go forward, we really want to do a great less on content acquisition, because it is information that is readily available. Access to information now. Anything you want, you Google. Anything you want, you AI now. You can have that information. So knowledge and information is right there. But I think what we need to do is to put greater emphasis now on the competencies that students are acquiring and how we go about assessing those competencies. So we talk about the life skills, problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills. So our whole outlook and how assessments should be administered should now take into consideration the critical competencies that we want them to acquire and display. So some safeguards, plagiarism, we talk about that. You must give credit where credit is due. We talk about the intellectual laziness, where we have to put systems in place that does not retard cognitive development. And so intellectual laziness can be an outcome of a risk, an outcome side effect of what AI would create. And the need for information verification and validation. And so these are important safeguards that we have to put in place to ensure that we move there. So the impact on teaching, an additional source of content for teachers to use, the need to keep abreast with technological development because it is changing how the classroom operates. It creates a greater sense of facilitate dynamism in the delivery approaches, how and the varying methods. Brent just speak a lot to that. A means of developing students' analytical skills in performing comparative and critical assessments, right? All of these Brent would have gone through. The impact on learning, the need to focus on competencies that I just said, the development of crucial competencies, access to information that is not readily available, as long as we can put it in a way that we can validate the information coming, and that's where the teacher will have a greater role to play. It facilitates independent inquiry by the students. They want to get additional information, but this means then that we have to create a structured environment within which students will access information that is not erroneous. And I'm going to be concluding on that point later on. Impact on assessment, vigilance regarding the design of assessments, right? Teachers will have to now be a bit more deliberate in the assignments that they set and how they ask students, what they ask students to do, because it's something that students can just go in and put into ChatGPT and come back and give it to you, then that you're not developing the requisite competence. You also have to be a lot more discerning now of your students' capabilities, what they're able to do. So the work being produced and what you have been and how you have been interacting with that student will now determine whether or not this is the work of the student to overcome some of the cheating that Brent spoke about. But it requires us developing a greater level of understanding and relationship with your students or with our students to ensure that we understand the capabilities that they can that they're operating at. Progressive assessment is also important. ChatGPT will really put a spoke in the wheel for those summative assessments where it's just a one paper that you want. We now need to think about progressive, flexible assessment that you get the various pieces coming for students to be able to acquire the competencies as you move along, and you're assessing those competencies as you progress through their learning years in schools. And this summative one essay, a term paper, we have to be very careful now. I know we do that. I will not go through this. I wanted to play this long interview I had on for 17 minutes with Jodianne Quarry, who spoke to me on the ChatGPT lesson, but I'm running out of time. I don't.
At the Caribbean.
So I'm going to cut that out. But engaging AI is a powerful teaching aid. But I think if we find a way to restrict it to scholarly database and credible information, it can be powerful use. So within the school system or within the education system, if we can have this AI tool being available, but it only uses scholarly databases and credible information so that whatever it is generating, at least we know it is using accurate information to safeguard against some of the hallucination that I spoke about earlier. Then it can become a very good database for pre-class preparation, either by students or teachers creating, as Brent aptly put forward. It can generate sample questions and responses as students prepare themselves for exams or for a class and such the like. And this is highly engaging for both teachers and students. I had to rush through this presentation. I have a flight to catch. My apologies. Thank you very much for the time.
Dr. Wesley, your time and your competence has been appreciated and noted. We hope that at some point we can continue the conversations, because this is something that as educators we're quite interested in utilizing while ensuring that our human capacity retains its march towards development. We thank you for engaging with us, and we look forward to other opportunities where we can continue to share. We're aware that you will have to leave, and we are quite sorry to see you go, but we are very appreciative of your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We are now at that time where we're going to just take a couple minutes to look at the questions, that I can tell you the questions are coming in fast and furious. I note here the first question coming from Cliff Chandler, asking us or saying to us that there's a global bias being integrated into society, that governments and businesses and agencies are consolidating into a certain type of thinking. How do we ensure that ChatGPT will not homogenize into one type of thinking? How do we ensure diversity?
Yeah,
we are going to put that out. Go ahead.
So yeah, I think we need to assume that there is bias to begin with. So when an answer comes from ChatGPT, we should look at it through that critical lens and be thinking, okay, why is it saying this? What are the reasons for it? And then pose it back to ChatGPT and ask it again, meaning, why did you answer it in this way? Give me a step-by-step reasoning for this. What about this? Again, the whole idea with ChatGPT is that you can have a conversation with it. So you can ask it questions and it can give you a response and you can keep going. You can also ask it to generate different responses. So it is important. And I think that's a great question, because we always need to be thinking about it in that way and critically analyzing it.
Thank you so much. And I'm learning too about this idea of posing the prompts appropriately to get the responses that you need. I noted a question here coming again, just following on that, speaking about the integration of Turnitin on ChatGPT and what it offers. Dr. Wesley, are you still with us, or are you leaving? Can I pose you a question before you go through the door?
Please do, and then I'm gone, please.
All right. So this question that we have here speaks to plagiarism detection. I'm speaking about how can we prevent our students from plagiarizing, given the access to ChatGPT and the capabilities to actually write papers or model responses. Are you aware of how that Turnitin approach works, especially in the higher education or in the education system?
Well, Turnitin is a tool that universities have been using over the years, and Brent can perhaps elaborate, being in a university himself, that to detect whether or not persons would have presented other persons' work as their own, which is some of what the concern is about ChatGPT. It pulls information from the web, and it might not necessarily give credit to those from those it would have pulled that information from. And so the Turnitin tries to detect whether or not you're using somebody else's work as yours. Now, with AI, because it is as smart as it is, it's really doing a lot of wordsmithing. You're going to need a little more than Turnitin, right? Because in fact, if it creates it and presents it, Brent just showed you, there's some website being created, right? And so in other words, it is pointing that I have given credit to a source, but that source is not real, right? And if that source is not real, it is really ChatGPT itself, or that tool itself, is plagiarizing, right?
Yeah.
And that plagiarism would be transferred to the student, to the the work that he's submitting. And that is why I'm advocating for progressive assessment and move away from this summative assessment. Formative assessment is the way to go. So you incrementally assess the competencies you're looking for, and that students would have acquired those competencies before you move on to something else, or before you can certify that individual as having acquired what the syllabus want them to acquire. So I know that there's another one, I forgot the name of it right now, maybe Brent can remind me, but there's another version of Turnitin that is designed for AI systems, right? I forget the name. I forget the name of it right now. But there are systems out there trying to detect plagiarism, right? And that is why I made mention it at the end of my presentation. If you notice, I said, if we can create an AI system within the academic sphere that only access scholarly databases that are approved as information that we can trust, as well as credible information with appropriate citation, then this kind of pulling together would be in a controlled environment that mitigates against the kind of plagiarism idea you're talking about, right? Because at least the source, Brent, would be there from which they're taking that information, and it will sort of minimize this whole idea of cheating. But you don't want to pull away from that interaction that it allows, so students to be able to interact with new information. And, you know, even that in itself is developing certain competencies for comparative assessment, critical analysis, whether or not this argument is logical, cogent, you know, is it following the right principle? You're developing analytical skills within students that is now preparing them to interact with any information that they receive and know how to criticize them, or critique them rather, for accuracy and relevance.
I want to push a little further before you go, sir. And you are free to tell me no, but I will have to ask this question. How is the Caribbean Examination Council willing to embrace and or mitigate the ChatGPT in your examination space?
That's why I'm sorry I didn't get the full 30 minutes I wanted to present, because all of that is in that little interview clip that I spoke about. But we embrace ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, used within the teaching learning space. And that is why I talk about us reimagining the teaching, learning, and assessment process. It is a tool that is used to enhance. Now, in the case of the Caribbean Examination Council, none of our exams are actually summative, where persons would have access to AI to write those exams. Interestingly enough, we put ChatGPT to the test with 2 of our exams, and it's passed them with flying colors. These are the multiple choices now, right? Because it pulls information and it passes. Only one on our law exam, it did well. On our chemistry exam, it failed one of the questions, right? Failed to answer one of the questions correctly because it had a challenge interpreting the symbol, the chemistry symbol that was utilized there. But it did what it's supposed to do, right? And then we also asked it, generate some multiple choice questions for us from this content. And it did excellent job with plausible explanations, right, for these questions. But for some, we have this verification of information, erroneous information that is presented. And hence, that last recommendation I made, that if we can get artificial intelligence within the context of accurate, scholarly database that would have been tried, tested, and proven, you can get good quality results that will help to enhance the teaching learning process.
I see another problem, sir, because normally as an educator, our students are practiced and rehearsed in the questions that CXC normally poses. Now, with this expanding opportunity to create a wider bank, it means that the students are going to have to, it reduces that rote approach to the exams and forces that interpretation skill.
So that's not a problem. That's good. We don't want person to be rote learning. If an economy is going to expand and develop, economic development happens through innovation. Innovation comes through, I'm running out of time, but innovation comes through critical thinking, problem solving, the ability to analyze and create new information. That doesn't happen at the rote level or the knowledge level. You will have to be at the higher level of the taxonomy in terms of critical thinking, problem solving, and the ability to critique and analyze. So you really don't want rote learning. And the ends, as Brent pointed out earlier, and I called it intellectual laziness. You really don't want persons to become overly dependent on a software that allows their own cognitive development to be retarded, right? We don't want that. And so we have to provide, through teachers, a holistic environment. And hence, Brent, as you pointed out earlier, teacher capacity development is going to be critical because new technologies are coming out. Our young people are very excited about technology and the use of artificial intelligence. They're there already. What we need to do is to make sure that the system, the entire system, is prepared to have this kind of interaction for the full reward and benefit that we want to achieve from AI. Because it is here to stay, from Stone to ChatGPT.
Sir, we appreciate your presence with us. We won't hold it any longer, but we look forward to continued conversation in another sphere similar to this one.
No problem. Thank you very much. And thanks to your listeners for the questions that they posed. I think those were some great questions, but I'm quite sure Brent will now take over and answer all the things. Very great presentation, Brent. I really enjoyed it. I think you have captured. I love. You need to send them how we get that book, because I didn't know that you had a book out already on this, so it's great. Thank you very much. And all the best.
Thank you, sir.
Good.
Dr. Anders.
Yes.
I have a question here coming from a parent.
Okay.
Saying that we have looked at this from the perspective of education, forgetting a key stakeholder is a parent. How can parents use this? So in their students or their children's preparation?
Okay, so first before I answer that, I want to go back to the plagiarism detection, all right? Because I think that the question is asking a couple of different things. And I made there's an article, there's a video that I've done all about this. So it's a big topic. And I'm going to answer it directly to begin with. So there's plenty of software out there. There's like, I personally tested about 10 different ones. Some of them are paid, some of them are free, that you can use to detect whether this was created with whether an essay was created with AI or not, right? Now, there's different levels of how good that they work, but some of them work fairly well. But that's if a student were to take the direct information straight from AI and then just turn it in. Sure, you're going to have some students like that, but anyone that's been an educator for more than a couple of days will know that you'll have some students that will spend 3 hours to circumvent a system where if they just spent 30 minutes, they could have just done it the right way, right? So if you take an AI output, there's very easy, specific things you can do to modify it in such a way that it'll pass all the detectors. It's not that difficult. Just the way that you phrase your prompt, some changes some slight edits that you do after you get the AI coming back. I mean, changing some slight little things, that'll circumvent a lot of the detectors. So relying on detectors just in itself, that's not the solution, unfortunately for some, because they really want to use that. But the idea of knowing your students, knowing how they write, knowing their capabilities and their development, that's going to be that much more important as well. Now, I know that can be very difficult if you have a class of 50, 100 people. That's very difficult to do. But making sure that you're going through the process itself of writing, because that's a big thing to really think about now. It's not just that end product. I'm not just checking to make sure you can do a comparative essay. No, I'm going to check to make sure you can do the outline properly. You can do the rough draft properly. You can do the reference list. So these little formative assessments are going to build up to that summative assessment, which is exactly what was being discussed before. So that's an important thing to think about as far as this detection. Now, one final thing with that. With those softwares that we're talking about, they're designed to detect AI text. I would make a strong argument, right? If I use ChatGPT right now to create a document because I'm going to be turning it in for something, I'm the one that's responsible for that. I would challenge anyone to say that, hey, no, you didn't make that, Dr. Anders, ChatGPT made that. No. If I'm turning it in, I'm putting my name on the line. So it's going to be Dr. Anders. Why? I used it as a tool, just like I use Microsoft Word. And then I have to go through, I have to maybe edit some things. I have to verify that every single one of those references are correct. I have to go through and check it. I have to modify, I have to edit. So I'm using it as a tool, but ultimately when I turn this in, my name is going to be on there. I'm the one that's going to be held accountable, not ChatGPT. So you see, this is going to be the new reality. More and more people use this as a creation tool. We're still going to be part of the process, and we're still the ones that need to be held accountable, not ChatGPT, but this is going to become the new normal as far as creation process. So that's something to really think about as far as what we're doing, because those detection software detects that it was created with an AI. It doesn't detect plagiarism. In fact, it's not plagiarism because this is a new creation. This creation wouldn't have existed if I hadn't prompted. If I didn't give this prompt, it wouldn't have created this original work. So that's something to really think about. Again, the way that we're working on this within our university is, well, no, we don't think that this falls within plagiarism. You can't say, hey, student, you use ChatGPT, that's plagiarism. We're not viewing it that way. We're viewing it as another part within cheating within our policy, as far as if the instructor doesn't say that you can use ChatGPT AI, then you can't use it. So it would fall within that category, not within plagiarism. So again, really different ways to think about this. But again, this is important for us to really think about in academia, because this is so brand new. This is developing in many different ways. So great question that was asked. So now this next question dealing with the parent's role. Great question. I haven't been focused on that. I'm in higher education, so I kind of think a little bit less about that, but that's a very important question. The way that I see it is that as this can also function as an empowerment tool for students, this can also function as an empowering tool for parents, because now they can quickly learn what they need to. They can quickly check what their students are doing, what their children are doing. They're empowered to be able to understand the information that much easier because of this capability. Now, another big thing within AI literacy is to know the right tool, to know the right AI to use. So I'll give you an example. ChatGPT is great for anything associated with text, creating text, all sorts of content. It's not that great at math. At least the free version isn't that great at math and creating math problems, understanding that. But there's another AI that's out there that's publicly available that's super good at math problems. So that's Wolfram Alpha. So that's a different AI. So part of good AI literacy is understanding which AI to use, the best tool for the proper job. So those are other considerations as well.
You mentioned AI literacy, and I see that as a major solution coming out of this space. literacy for students, literacy for teachers, appreciating, as you said, what is cheating versus circumventing what the instructions are. I think, as you mentioned earlier, the prompts. As educators now, we will have to be given prompts. This is not something that should be generated via AI, but there are several AI at different levels that we have been using over the years. Those that help us to vet our documents when you're currently writing an essay, checking for errors. So those are standard AIs that we've been using.
Mm-hmm.
How do we create a system, in your estimation, that allows us to help our students to understand the space that they're operating in and what is best for them in terms of their own development, skills and competencies, while embracing that AI that is a part of this revolution that we're going through?
Yeah, so I mean, there's lots of new capabilities that are coming out with the new version of ChatGPT. So we're talking about ChatGPT that uses the GPT-4 language. So again, that's behind a paywall. With that, you're going to be able to do so many more things, just like create specific databases of information. So you can make it so that when it gives you an answer, it's only using, let's say, Google Scholar or this database from the UN. You'll be able to select certain things. Now, that's not freely available yet, so that's a future thing, but those type of tools and implementations will allow us to do that. Also, the API is out associated with ChatGPT Plus, which again, for programming people, that means that you can harness the different capabilities of it, the different, basically it's got within it multiple tools that can be used to, again, use it in different ways, like what you're talking about. So it's definitely going to be out there. The other big thing, though, is to be really conscious and aware of the tools that are out there freely available, because it is going to be starting to be integrated in so many more things. ChatGPT is going to be integrated in all sorts of Microsoft products. You have a competitor in Google. Google has Bard. That's going to be integrated into all sorts of Google products. So again, there are going to be different similar types of capabilities, but we still need to have that AI literacy in order to understand and determine the information that we're getting back. So yeah, the future holds a lot of possibilities for this.
We're winding down. I have two questions here, and I'm going to pose both of them together and then give you a chance to go on. Now, one of our invitees, note or guest, asked, could you explain if there is such a parameter that would allow AI-generated research papers that could be then peer-reviewed and added to the body of scholarship that exists on a particular topic? Is that something that is explorable, doable, and could it actually happen? And then my second question speaks more to the higher education system, speaking to librarians. How can they reposition themselves in this new AI environment? How can the library present themselves as a space where students can learn and manipulate information, acquiring that AI intelligence that we say is so necessary to navigate?
Okay, great questions. I'll start with the first one. So there is an ongoing debate talking about sort of that topic. There are already 4 or 5 different actual papers that the author is credited as being ChatGPT. Now, I have a problem with that for 2 specific reasons. The first one is accountability. Again, I can't hold ChatGPT accountable. I can't say to it, hey, you were wrong. It's a machine, right? So the accountability is extremely important. There needs to be this human element that can be held accountable. Hey, you're putting out false information. This is going to affect your credibility. Why? Because you're accountable. Now, the other aspect to that is consent. Did ChatGPT give consent to publish anything? No, it's an artificial intelligence. It doesn't have that capability, at least now. So the fact that this was put out there, we don't have consent, we don't have someone that we can hold accountable, it doesn't make sense right now. There still needs to very much be a person in that loop that can be held accountable, that can say, put their name on the line and say, this is correct information, this is verified, all the references are correct, all the data is correct. That's an important element that needs to continue. Again, lots of great stuff that's coming from AI, but there needs to be that human interaction, that component for that process in order to be properly peer reviewed. So that deals with that. The other question with librarians, I'm glad that you brought that up. The librarians are dear to my heart because I consider the library the heart of any educational institution. So much goes on there. I mean, even now at the university I'm at, we have a relatively small library. That place is packed. That place is always packed. They're not reading books, right? Very few people actually check out a book, but they're there, they're learning, they're engaging, they're interacting, they're asking questions. There's lots of learning going on there. Why? Because it's this academic space, and that's very important. Where do the librarians come in? The librarians come in a multiple of ways, and one primary way is this AI literacy aspect. You might have a student that will come up to you as a librarian and say, hey, I just spent 5 minutes trying to find this reference that ChatGPT gave me. I've been looking everywhere and I can't find it. Can you please help me find it? Well, that was the reference that I showed you at the beginning of the presentation that was made up by ChatGPT. So this would be a primary example of that librarian to say, hey, you got this from ChatGPT. Let's go over the process. This isn't a real reference. Let's talk about ChatGPT. Let's go through the process so that it's good that you be a critical analyzer of what you're doing and what you're getting and show them proper resources. The librarians should be masters of using ChatGPT with the prompt creation, with being able to access information. Again, the librarians are going to be very, very important. They're going to be very important right now and even into the future, because there's going to be so much more capabilities that are coming. I mean, you're talking about visual comprehension with ChatGPT. You're talking about the librarians helping students understand that, hey, that video that you're referencing, that's not a real video. Let me show you how to analyze the video. Let me show you the proper sequences so that we can critically analyze this video, this image, this audio, in order to, make sure that that student really has these important AI literacy skills. Yeah, I see the librarians as being extremely important in this process. They should be hosting events, there should be posters, there should be lots of things going on to help students understand this vital, vital skill. I see librarians as an important part of that for sure.
A lot going on. In the chat, we are talking about ChatGPT, critical, higher order, and creative thinking. You mentioned earlier in your presentation that it was imperative for teachers, for educators to familiarize themselves with the space and also learn how to create prompts that would help or force a student to follow or to do it independently. Can you, for just 2 minutes, remind us of some of those key skills, and then we're going to take a question from a raised hand.
Okay. Yeah. So the big thing is I highly encourage people to go in and just start to play around with it, just to get your feet wet with it. Again, this doesn't mean that you're fully embracing it. You're just starting to understand it. You're starting to learn it because your students are doing the same thing. So go in there and ask it a question. You're not going to be a good engineer, prompt engineer at the beginning, because you're going to be asking it simple, direct questions. But then you're going to start to understand how it gives you information. And then you can have this conversation. You can ask it more questions. You can ask it directly, hey, what would be a good prompt, ChatGPT? What would be a good prompt in order for you to explain this to me? And it'll create a prompt for you. So it can do that. It can help you in your actual process of creating a prompt. Plus, there's tons of websites that have lots of different prompts that are already created, that have been tested. Use some of those, test those out, see which ones work better for you. The big thing is to start to go through it, to familiarize yourself, and then talk to your students about it as well. By having this discussion, by bringing it up, they'll start to understand, oh, yeah, this is important, and you'll start to develop this AI literacy organically within itself. Do tests in the class. Ask it as a class, say, what do you think AI is going to respond with this question? Let's ask it a different, come up with different questions and we'll test it as a class, individually, all sorts of possibilities there. And then to really analyze those results. Remember, using that critical analysis, is this a good response? What's it missing? What does it need to have additionally? Is this bias? Again, posing that and discussing that is going to really elevate the learning process, especially if you do it together.
All right, we have a raised hand. I'm going to ask the administrator, the host, to unmute the mic of the person so that they can ask their question to Dr. Anders.
Go ahead, Barrington Graham. You are allowed to share.
Mr. Graham?
All right, let me allow someone else, Jodian Johnson.
Hi, good morning. Am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, all right. I'm from the University of the Commonwealth, Caribbean, Jamaica. So on a personal level, one of my innate misgivings re ChatGPT and pedagogy is the development of my students' critical thinking and levels of analysis, as was discussed in detail. And you expounded on how ChatGPT can be effectively integrated into the pedagogy process. What I want to know, are there any existing programs or programs that are about to be developed, given your expertise, to detect AI-generated work, essays and assignments, of a tertiary level nature?
Right. So I have a video as well as a write-up, an article that talks about that as far as being able to go through and detect that it was written with AI. Again, there are many different ways to circumvent that. Simply typing in the way that you type the prompt itself, you can cause the way that it generates the text to be even more human-like than normal. So there's so many circumventions to it that it is kind of this cat and mouse game, right? Sure, if you use detection software, you'll be able to catch some people that are being lazy and just taking the AI and turning it in. So that's definitely going to work. But then you also have to be very careful with, you're taking this, let's say, essay that somebody submitted, and you're turning it into this detection software. You better be sure that that detection software isn't reusing that information. Plus, what was the nature of the essay? Was this a personal essay that I wrote about some, experience that I had, and this is in confidence between me and you? Well, if it's in confidence between me and you just submitted it to this third party, well, now it wasn't in confidence. So again, we have to really be thinking about the security and the safety of the information. Plus, ChatGPT itself, you can actually use it as a detection software. You can turn in something that's written and you can ask it, hey, was this written by a human or an AI? And it's actually pretty good at detection as well. So there's lots of possibilities there.
We have a question from John McFarlane. John, you may go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you very much for what I think has been an excellent and very informative presentation on all parts. Really appreciative from all the three speakers. My question is this: I'm involved in security, aviation security in particular. And there are some aspects of aviation security that clearly ought not to be up there in the public domain. How would ChatGPT relate to that, both in terms of developing course content, the questions related to verifying competencies, etc.? Is ChatGPT is this a recommended platform for such a subject matter?
Right. So again, we have to think about how we're using the program itself. Definitely, I would never put in any content itself that is private or secure. You shouldn't be putting that into ChatGPT. But there's many different ways to use ChatGPT, because you might have this concept and it's just a concept, not the specific details, but then you can ask ChatGPT about the concept itself. How can I present this concept in a different way? How can I use hands-on learning for this type of topic in general? So then you can extrapolate that and then apply it to your specific content. So again, it's about the different pedagogical aspects of it that it's very smart about, that you can use it as a tool in that way. But definitely, you definitely have to be for sure not putting in information that's confidential or anything like that, because again, OpenAI will have access to that. And again, they have lots of different researchers with that.
Thank you very much. And again, congrats on an excellent presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. As we are getting closer to the end, there is a question that speaks to accessibility. As we move now, we are looking at ensuring that information available can be readily accessed by persons with whatever disabilities that exist. Are there functionalities on the embedded into ChatGPT to accommodate the various disabilities or ability levels for the program?
So yes and no, right? I don't think that the actual interface is as great as it could be for different types of disabilities. However, you can get many different extensions within Chrome that work specifically with ChatGPT. So they'll be looking for that. Also within the Edge browser, Microsoft Edge, the browser, that has built-in web speaking software, so it can actually read what ChatGPT is saying. You can talk into it and it can write for you. So I've tested it a little bit with some extensions within the Chrome browser. So it'll work fairly well with that. But again, they can definitely be doing more. Now, the other part to that is using ChatGPT to modify content within a course to make it more accessible. It can provide summaries. It can provide information at different levels of complexity. It can present information in different ways. So it's a very useful tool in that way. So there's lots of different things. I recently had a meeting with our accessibility person here. You know, we have an office of accessibility, and I introduced this concept to them because it offers so many different capabilities. What really needs to happen is people within those offices of accessibility, disability, they need to start to play around with ChatGPT to see how this could be used. Because there's, again, we're only limited by our imagination. There's lots of different aspects dealing with mental health, but again, it needs to be looked at and used in the right way. And it's continuing to improve. And this is the current version. Again, I keep trying to stress that because the next version, man, there's so many possibilities here as far as being able to create videos, going from text to imagery, going from imagery to text, going both ways. The video itself could be summarized by ChatGPT, or ChatGPT could create a video. Those are all future implementations that, again, will have lots of different implementations within accessibility.
I am excited, and
Yes.
I appreciate now the wisdom of the university's librarian, Mrs. Leach, in ensuring that this was a 4-part conversation, because the conversation is rich.
Yes.
And I have learned so much about it. And I am going to get a little bit more familiarized. I had started introducing myself to my friend, but as you said, my smart friend, I'm going to get a little closer to my smart friend to ensure that we have a better relationship going forward. I am very cognizant of the opportunities, as mentioned before. I have noted some of the ethical concerns that you would have raised in terms of what is considered cheating versus what is something that is original. My final question to you as we close, if I put the same prompt in twice, will I get the same essay?
Okay, great question. So one, it's possible, but there are lots of different factors to consider. A lot of people don't realize that your interactions with ChatGPT, because it's a conversation, can affect the result. So if I'm having a conversation about it with ChatGPT about, let's say, professional communication, so I've been asking questions, it's helping me create a syllabi and everything, and now I switch to questions about biology. Well, it could still be affected by that previous conversation, because remember, I'm continuing with this conversation. So what you can do within the interface of ChatGPT is start a new conversation. Then it sort of blanks it out. So now we're fresh, starting something new. So that can be an effective aspect of that. And when you're talking about asking it a question, if I change one word, I might be asking it a slightly different type of question. So we have to be careful with the prompt itself. I worked really hard to get that prompt to work effectively, to have that job interview scenario that I went through, because you can ask it in different ways and it won't work appropriately. So you have to use the right terminology done in the right way in order to have that be effective. So just changing one word could affect it. The other thing is that although it says, this is what OpenAI says with ChatGPT, that it's limited in information past 2021, right? So the information it has, the sources it has is to 2021. That's not 100% true. They're always updating it with some slight differences, giving it some specific information that it needs to have in order to be less biased. It's always slightly adjusting the guardrails that the system has in order to give you sort of the best response. So because it's being updated and slightly changed and modified, the prompt might work differently, or the question that you ask might have a slightly different result. So those are all different ways that it could slightly change, but in general, it should be similar.
Sir Anders, Dr. Anders, Dr. Wesley is absent. I want to extend on behalf of the Michael University College our gratitude or appreciation for the time spent, and I think time well spent with you as both as presenters. I think the challenge at the end has been issued. The AI competency, knowledge, and skill set has to be taught to our students, and as educators, we can't afford to be behind them running. We need to lead the conversation. We need to be ahead of our students to guide them down this path to ensure that their higher order thinking skills, their critical thinking and synthesis skills are maintained and preserved and even sharpened through this discovery. We thank you we want to express special thanks to our participants who were with us. We are up to 201, and some persons would have left. And at the end of a seminar, you have 200 persons. Come on, we would have seen persons supporting, and we want to say thank you. A special note of gratitude goes out to Dr. Meredith Chin for being here with us and supporting the process. I want to express gratitude to the persons who participated, Mrs. Howell Williams, Mr. Alvin Lawson, Mr. Smith, and as well as Dr. Anders and Dr. Wesley for their presentation. Gratitude also goes out to our university librarian for recognizing that this was something that needed to be done and initiating the conversation on a global scale for us here at the Michael University College. My name is Patrice Bowen, and I wish to say thank you. And we look forward to the third in the series. Look out for it. Look out for the invitations and come again so we can expand our knowledge base and ensure that we are leaders in this space. I thank you.